Hey everyone, Samantha, the Family Life Minister here at My New Christian Church. Thanks for tuning in this Wednesday evening. If you didn't watch last week, we are now in the New Testament. So we are going to dive in on page 184. That same night, amongst the other stars, suddenly a bright new star appeared. Of all the stars in the dark, vaulted heavens, this one shone clearer. It blazed in the night and made the other stars look pale beside it. God put it there when his baby son was born, to be like a spotlight, shining on him, lighting up the darkness, showing people the way to him. You see, God was like a new daddy. He couldn't keep the news to himself. He had been waiting all these long years for this moment, and now he wanted to tell everyone. So he pulled out all the stops. He sent an angel to tell Mary the good news. He put a special star in the sky to show where his boy was. And now he was going to send a big choir of angels to sing his happy song to the world. He's here, he's come, go and see him, my little boy. Now where would you send your splendid choir? To a concert hall maybe, or a palace perhaps. God sent his to a little hillside outside a little town in the middle of the night. He sent all the angels to sing for a raggedy old bunch of shepherds watching their sheep outside Bethlehem. In those days, remember, people used to laugh at shepherds and say they were smelly and call them other rude names, which I can't possibly mention here. You see, people thought shepherds were nobodies, just scruffy old riff-raff. But God must have thought shepherds were very important indeed, because they're the ones he chose to tell the good news to first. That night, some shepherds were out in the open fields, warming themselves by a campfire, when suddenly the sheep darted. They were frightened by something. The olive trees rustled. What was that? A wing beat? They turned around. Standing in front of them was a huge warrior of light, blazing in the darkness. "Don't be afraid of me," the bright, shining man said. I haven't come to hurt you. I've come to bring you happy news. For everyone everywhere, today in David's town in Bethlehem, God's son has been born. You can go and see him. He is sleeping in a manger. Behind the angel, they saw a strange glowing cloud, except it wasn't a cloud. It was angels. Troops and troops of angels armed with light, and they were singing a beautiful song. Glory to God be fame and honor and all our hoorays. Then as quickly as they appeared, the angels left. The shepherds stamped out their fire, left their sheep, raced down the grassy hill, through the gates of Bethlehem, down the narrow cobble streets, through a courtyard, down some steps, past an end, around a corner, through a hedge, until at last they reached a tumble-down stable. They caught their breath. Then quietly they tiptoed inside. They knelt on the dirt floor. They had heard about this promised child, and now he was here, heaven's son, the maker of the stars, a baby sleeping in his mother's arms. This baby would be like that bright star shining in the sky that night, a light to light up the whole world, chasing away darkness, helping people to see, and the darker the night got, the brighter the star would shine. We're going to continue talking about the three wise men. Far away in the east, three clever men saw the very same star, the star that God had put in the sky when Jesus was born. They knew it was a sign. A baby king had been born. They had been waiting for this star. They knew it would come. "He's here," they shouted. "He's here." And I'm sure if you had been there, you would have heard them laughing and dancing and singing until the sun came up. At dawn, they packed up their camels and wrapped gifts for the baby. They brought their most precious treasures of all, frankincense, gold, and myrrh. Special, sparkly, lovely smelling, gleaming things, just right for a king. The three wise men, actually, if you had met them, you would have thought they were kings because they were so rich and clever and important looking, set off. They rode their camels across endless deserts, up steep, steep mountains, down into deep, deep valleys, through raging rivers, over grassy plains, night and day and night, for hours that turned into days, that turned into weeks, that turned into months, and months until at last they reached Jerusalem. Jerusalem was by far the most important city for miles around, and as anyone can tell you, that's where a palace would be, and kings are born in palaces. So that's where they went. But they were in for a surprise. They went to see King Herod. Surely he'd know where this baby was. But he didn't. In fact, he didn't like the sound of a new king. It made him cross. He didn't want anyone to be a king except him. But Herod's advisors told the 3 wise men what was written in their books, what God had said about the baby king. Go to Bethlehem, that's where you'll find him. Suddenly the star they had seen in the east started moving again, showing them the way. So the 3 wise men followed the star out of the big city, around the road into the little town of Bethlehem. They followed the star through the streets of Bethlehem, out of the nice part of town, through the not so nice part of town, into the really not nice part of town, down a little dirt track until it stopped right over a little house. But wait, it wasn't a palace. There weren't any guards or servants or flags or carpets or trumpets or anything. Did they get it wrong? Or was this what God meant? Sure enough, in that little house there, sitting on his mother's knee, they found him, the baby king. The 3 men knelt before the little king. They took off their rich royal turbans and gleaming golden crowns. They bowed their noble heads to the ground and gave him their sparkling treasures. The journey that had begun so many centuries before had led 3 wise men here, to a little town, to a little house, to a little child, to the king God had promised David all those years before. But this child was a new kind of king. Though he was the Prince of Heaven, he had become poor. Though he was the mighty king, he had become a helpless baby. This king hadn't come to be the boss. He had come to be a servant. So that's where we're going to end for today. So you probably have heard those stories of the shepherds coming and the 3 wise men. So you probably didn't realize that Jesus was older when the 3 wise men came to him. So that's something that I didn't know until I was a little older. I thought they came like the night of his birth. So I hope that this has been a great story time for you, and check back in with us on Sunday at 6 p.m. when we read more in the Bible. Have a great week, everyone.